Hey guys, come on in and pull up a chair. Today we're talking about organizing our studio, and we're going to continue on in the series about getting organized specifically with our computers. Now, what I'm going to talk about today may seem overly simplistic, but I think it's something that I've witnessed a lot of times with other people, and they just don't incorporate this idea, but it will save a lot of time. And also it helps to keep you very organized. And what I'm specifically talking about in this is all the folders and the files and everything that you store in your computer. Now, in my last video we talked about hard drives, and hopefully you have a dedicated hard drive for your audio files, in which you're keeping all the audio files on a separate hard drive and off of your operating hard drive or your C drive. Now we're moving on past that point, and let's get to how we want to organize these files and folders on that specific audio drive that we're using. What I like to do is break them down into categories. Now, if you're like me, you've got a lot of different topics and subjects that you're dealing with, other people that you record with, and just other instances that make for a huge variety of types of recording that you might do. For instance, I would have some clients, and I want to keep all my client files separated and they're on their own folders and such. So specifically what I would do is, for each type of file or each type of project that you have, I would make a folder for that, and then I would categorize those, like these are outside clients, these are going to be church projects, these are going to be personal projects, and so on and so on. So hopefully you see where I'm going with that. That way, when you go to pull up the files, you can go exactly to the folder that you know where it's going to be in, and the way that the folder is labeled, you can quickly decide and see what's in this folder. Now, I like to go another step further, and I like to also date my files. Now, you can go and click the property of the file, but I just like to be able to read down it. Say if I have a couple of mixes of a particular song, if I date them in the title of the file, that way I can just look down there and see what is the most recent mix that I might have. And the dating system can be whatever you like to use, and I find that if you use the same type of system, that it will come up numerically or sequentially when you're looking at your files. I like to go, say if I'm going to do January 2nd, 2014, I'll go 01, 02, 2014. So 01 for January, 02 for the 2nd, and obviously 2014. That way, if I have a file that says 01, 06, 2014, then I know, hey, that's a little later file. I did that on January 6th. And that comes in extremely handy. Now, in my personal projects, a lot of those are broken down into situations to where I'm working specifically on a CD for myself, or I have just some ideas, or I'm doing little snippets or something like that, and it really pays to go ahead and organize those into their own folders too. So I have folders specifically on my computer, miscellaneous wave files or just ideas, however you want to label those. But the main idea is to break down all these audio files that you have and put them and categorize them and put them in their own specific folder for their own. And go ahead and don't be afraid to have too many categories, because if you end up having 10 or 15 categories, after a while, when you have 100 different sessions or projects going on, after a while, after you build these up, you'll be really glad that you have that broken down into the 10 or 15 most popular topics that you use. Now, one last item. Now, I use Cakewalk Sonar. It's a great program. I'm not recommending that you necessarily have to use this program, but what I want to talk about is specifically inside that program, you can set a default for where each project will contain its own folder, or will create its own folder. So therefore, if I do a session and say a jam session in A minor, I can label it as that. I can put jam session A minor idea 01 2014. That tells me exactly what that file is, when it was created and such. Then if I were to do jam session in C minor and put a different date, it will create all my session files, all the MIDI files that I use in that, all the audio files will now go into its own project folder. So therefore, I'm not combining all my audio files in just a one big heaping pile of audio files. So I would look into your program and see if you have something very similar to that. It's usually called a per project or per session type folder. And if you don't have that feature, that's something that you could easily create, because when you go to save your files or save as, you can go ahead and break these down and organize them in that sort of way. Again, I hope this topic didn't put you to sleep. I know it's pretty simple, but for the fact that I'm bringing this up is because I see a lot of people that just totally negate this, and I see on the internet forums, hey, what do? I've got hundreds and hundreds of audio files. How can I organize them or sort them out? I lost a file. This works out perfectly all the time. In fact, there is, and just looking for audio files, let me just bring up this one last thing before I get out of here, and that is sometimes I've had a session close prematurely on me, or I had a hidden track or something like that, and I shut the project down, and then when I pull it back up, I go, oh, I saved it before I shut it down and there was a track hidden and I lost a file or whatever. If I can go back and look in that project folder, usually that file will still be there. So it's a good way to kind of save yourself and back yourself up. Again, hope this helps. I appreciate you guys sticking around. There's plenty more coming down the pike about how to organize the computer and how we're going to be organizing our project studio. This makes things smooth, lean, and mean, so we'll be pumping out the quality at a high rate. Thanks again, guys. We'll talk to you next video.